Hello, yes, your eyes have not deceived you. I am back with another video. That's right, 2 videos, 2 weeks in a row. Don't call it a comeback, but I'm back, baby. So today's video is going to be a little different. So if you've been around with me for a while, you already know, and if not, you're going to quickly learn that the only project I have ever worked on while having my Authortube channel is Beware of Monsters. I have been on Authortube since April of 2019. And I was working on Beware of Monsters then, and you guessed it, I'm still working on that project. Will I ever not be working on that project? That's a great question. I don't have an answer for you. All I can say is fingers crossed. But since that's the only project I have ever talked about on this channel, I don't want you guys thinking that I don't have other ideas or projects or things that I'd like to work on. I'm not a one-trick pony. I mean, honestly, right now I'm a 0-trick pony because I can't even finish Beware of Monsters, but I do have lots of ideas. And I've seen people make videos where they talk about their other ideas or projects and like kind of where they are in the process, or just kind of like talking them out. And then you can kind of like follow up on that video 6 months or a year from now and kind of go through a list again and see, do you still have those ideas? Have you made any progress on them? That kind of stuff. So that's kind of what I want to do in today's video. I can't really work on more than one project at a time. So of course, right now, my main focus for 2022 is to get a complete draft of Beware of Monsters. But I do have other ideas that I want to work on in the future. And when ideas come to me, I do jot them down, and I do have like working ideas and stuff for other projects. So I thought it'd be a really cool idea to lay out all of my project ideas. I'm not going to divulge too much, but I will give you a little bit of info on some of the projects, if I've made any, you know, progress on them, how they kind of fit into the writing world, that kind of stuff. I just thought it'd be fun, and I thought it'd be fun for me, maybe like I said, 6 months or a year from now, to make a follow-up video from this and kind of reflect on those. Do I still have all of those? Have I made any progress, etc. So today's video, I'm going to talk about all of my future writing projects. So they definitely vary in categories. As you guys know, I originally thought I was like a YA contemporary writer. I have now moved into YA horror, and that is really where I kind of want to focus. But I do have ideas at other things that I may get to, I may not get to, I don't know. So I did break down what are all of my ideas, and they kind of fall into 6 different categories. Horror is my number 1, YA horror. I also have some YA sci-fi. I have some spooky middle grade, contemporary middle grade, adult horror, and adult rom-com. So those are the 6 categories that all of my ideas fall under. Now, let's break them down. Let's talk about what they are. Let's talk about if I have made any progress, have any ideas on them. And yeah, let's just get started. All right, so my first category is YA horror. So of course, the book that I'm currently working on is Beware of Monsters. It is a supernatural thriller mystery about a small town and like an urban legend, that kind of thing. Okay, so that is Beware of Monsters, but I have conceptualized Beware of Monsters to be one of 3 books that exist in the same world but are not. It's not a trilogy. They don't build on each other. They just exist in the same world. And there's, if you've ever read Stephanie Perkins, Anne and the French Kiss, Lola, what is Lola? I don't know, but, and then Isla and the Happily Ever After. Lola's my least favorite anyway. It's like, you can read them in order, or you could just read one, or you could read them out of order. It doesn't matter, but they do have some recurring characters and they exist in the same world, and there will be some things that come up if you do read all of them. So that is how I kind of see Beware of Monsters. It is the first of 3. So the second one in that series actually is more of a haunting, like a ghost story, if you will. I don't want to say too much about what kind of ghost or where or whatever, because it's kind of like the interesting part of the story, but it has to do with being like a haunting. And like figuring out the haunting. So that is the second book. And then the third is more of a slasher. Yeah, it's it's a teen slasher. So again, they all exist. So the main character in the first book would be a side character in the second book, like a small, very small, like a cameo. And then the third book would have a cameo of the first and second main characters. So that is so that's kind of how I'm conceptualizing them. So I have those three, but I also have another idea for a teen slasher that takes place at the beach. So that one is slightly different because the teen slasher that I have in my little like trilogy idea, I don't want to call it a trilogy, but you know, in my book series, my Same World series, that one, it takes place at a con. So different locations and different sort of setups for it, but two different teen slashers. I am not a girl. And then I also have a cult idea about a girl who has just graduated high school and she finds herself involved in a cult. She doesn't really realize it's a cult. And then by the time she realizes, she's already really like enmeshed in it. So yeah, so I have a cult idea that I really like as well. And I'm really excited about that one. Not that I'm not excited about the other ones, but I have a lot of really good ideas for that one. Again, I can't be too specific because I think that that's what's interesting about it, is like the situation that she gets herself into and how it ends up getting that way. So yeah, but I really like that idea. I think it could be a really strong idea, and it may be the next YA horror I work on. At least that's the plan for now. I also have, I think it's, let me see, let me look at my piece of paper. I have three sort of nebulous ideas, are not as like thought out as those previous ones. Those previous ones I have like really clear ideas of like character, theme, some of the plot stuff. But these last three, I have a changeling idea that's a little nebulous. A classic like horror trope of like things appearing in the woods thing that could be combined with the changeling idea. And then also I have an idea of like kind of like a Ed and Lorraine psychic spiritualism idea as well, which maybe could be combined. Probably not. Probably just, but I do think the things in the wood and the changeling idea could be combined. I don't know if those are anything, those are like the bottom of my list. Like I just have these like little nuggets of ideas that maybe I could do with those. But my main ones are the 3-book series, and then my other slasher and my other cult idea. So those are all my YA horror ideas. Now I do have YA sci-fi ideas. I have 3 main ones. It's basically a standalone that could probably be a series. That is actually the first book I ever wrote. My very first book, I called it Rewritten. It would have a different title now. But it's an android story in a very near future US post-Civil War. So there was a civil war in the US, which is starting to feel freakishly like it could have been a prediction. But I wrote it in 2014. I do have a full draft of that, but you know, this is before I had met Plot, so she's not in there. But I have some great ideas of how to fix it. But yeah, it's not post-apocalyptic. I would not say that. It's just a post-Civil War, near future US with androids. So I actually really love the idea. I love one of my main characters so much. He's my first like character I ever conceptualized, and I will someday write a book with him in it. And then my other 2 books would be like a duology idea, and it's a classic. Again, I'm being annoying, but I don't want to say what classic just because I haven't seen this done before, done yet. It's a really one of my most favorite American classic books in space, but it's like that book meets Solo, the Star Wars Solo movie, you know, Han Solo. So it's like those two meet, and then it would be a sequel that that like builds off of what happens at the end of the first one. So it's kind of like smugglers, intergalactic war, good versus evil internally. Am I bad? Am I good? Is that predetermined? Do I have a choice? That kind of thing. So I have that insights, and I freaking love those ideas. I really do. The reason why I'm not working on them is kind of twofold. One, I don't think I'm strong enough of a writer to write sci-fi yet. I did try to write it before, did not go well. And also, yeah, I just struggle with world building, and I just don't think I have the chops for it. And second of all, I do know sci-fi is a hard sell. So it is something I mean, I love all three of my YA sci-fi ideas, so they're definitely something I would like to revisit in the future. Sorry for Falcor's loud snoring. But for now, they're like farther on the back burner. They're not anything that I would work on anytime soon, just because it's not really in my immediate vision of like my career goals or the market, to be honest. So then that brings me to middle grade. So I do have an idea for a spooky middle grade. I came up with it over the summer. I absolutely love it. I have plotted a lot of this out. I use the word plot loosely because, you know, me and her, we're not tight, but I have a lot of ideas. I have the setting, I have the character, I have a lot of it. I even have like how it's gonna end. So I have a lot of that mapped out. And to be honest, I think that's gonna be the next book that I work on after Beware of Monsters. Like, I have my cult book that would be the next YA, but I don't think it would be the next book I work on. I think when Beware of Monsters is maybe being read by other people or I'm letting it rest, I think the spooky middle grade is what I would focus on, because that's the next one that I have the most conceptualized and that I really am the most excited about. I love the concept that I've come up with. I love my main character. Like, I'm obsessed with her. And I just really, it's like, how was I describing it? It's like Casper meets, I don't know, I had two comps. Casper meets, I can't remember what the other one was. I should have wrote it down. But yeah, so it's got some elements of like, remember The Inventor and Edward Scissorhands? Yeah, it's got like some of that and like the old spooky house up on the hill on the outside of town kind of thing, and like a creepy old person that lives there, like with like spooky elements and stuff. So I love it so much. I have like the whole like vision of the little town and everything. And I do already have an idea for a sequel. Like, I know exactly how the first one could end, where it would be complete, but it could set up an opening for a sequel that would really then kind of make it a duology, and really make it full circle. Although it could have series potential beyond that, but like at least that two-story, like if it didn't get a second book, like it could stand on its own as one, but I have an idea for the second. So I really, really like those. I think that idea is really strong, and I really think that's what I would work on next. And then I do still have a contemporary middle grade idea that I have literally had since I was in my early 20s. It's really kind of like a premise and a character. It's about a girl named Claire who is a triplet, and it kind of deals with like her place in her family kind of thing. And I've set it up with a couple of different plots that I don't really love. And so I have like kind of the theme and the family dynamics and the character, but I don't quite have a plot for that yet. And I've tried to see if I could take it and work that like family dynamic and that character into my spooky middle grade, but I don't think they would work together. I need to think on it more, but as of right now, they're in different categories. And I would love to get back to that because I've conceptualized that character so long ago and she feels so fully formed in my mind, and I really love the premise. And I really want to write it, but I don't know, man. If I haven't come up with a plot by now, I don't know if it's gonna happen. But that's really all I have for middle grade. I definitely would love to, if I could get that other middle grade. It's something I'm looking more into this year. One of my goals is to read more like spooky middle grade. So, especially because I think that that's an avenue I want to pursue, really in the near future. And then finally, that brings me to my adult ideas. So I have 3 adult horror ideas. One of them it's a concept I've had for a while. In fact, I did do some videos on it. I originally conceptualized it as a YA book. I think I worked on it summer of 2020, and I did a couple of videos on it. I called it camp horror. It takes place at camp, but I realized that like the YA aspect of it really just wasn't working, and I wanted to reconceptualize it maybe for adults, although that would take some reworking too because it's a camp setting, and it would be like a slasher. But there was just a book announced recently, a YA book that like had my original YA concept, but it's like the exact same concept that I have for the YA that I couldn't make work, that I couldn't figure out some of the logistics. So I'm so excited to read hers because I would like to know how she worked it out. So now I'm just like, I don't know if I can still do it now because it's basically very similar to her idea, only I moved it up to adults. So that one may have to go on the back burner. That may be out, to be honest. I mean, her idea is still very different in a lot of ways, but it's like very similar on paper kind of thing. So I don't know, that was a little soul crushing, not gonna lie. Because I really like that idea. And then a new one that I just came up with recently is I have a haunted road trip, as you guys know, or maybe you don't, but I'm a huge road tripper. Like Aaron and I take road trips all the time. We have been to 40 of the 50 states. We have driven from North Carolina to LA to Chicago to North Carolina. We have done North Carolina to Boston. We've driven from LA to Portland, and in September, fingers crossed, we do have a trip planned to Iceland where we plan to road trip around the island. There is one road that goes the entire length of the island. It's called the Ring Road, and we plan to do that road trip. So anyway, so I have a horror road trip idea, kind of like a Jeepers Creepers, kind of esque, if you know Jeepers Creepers. But yeah, Jeepers Creepers means kind of like Clown in the Cornfield a little bit. But yeah, so I do have an idea for that that I really, really like. So I think if I were to go into adult horror, I think that would probably be the first one I try to write. But I do have a third one that's maybe a little bit more on the thriller side, but it's about like a group of women. It's very much inspired by Yellow Jackets. If you haven't watched Yellow Jackets yet, oh Lord, you have to watch Yellow Jackets. It is everything. It is horror, mystery, thriller. It is chef's kiss. It's on Showtime. If you don't have Showtime, you can do a 7-day free trial. Watch all 10 episodes right away, like we did. But it's kind of inspired by that, but it's like a group of women who only have like one thing in common, but they're all very different, and like something happens. I don't want to get too specific about any of it because I'm still kind of working out what that is, but I really love this idea of like women who have one thing in common that has brought them all together, but that they're all very individually different. And so when they find themselves in a situation, they're all kind of approaching it differently. And I really love that idea. So that is like my third adult horror idea. And then that brings me to my adult romance, rom-com. I don't know if I'll ever write these, but I love the idea and they just seem like they would be easy and fun. I have one that's kind of like second chance romance. It takes place during COVID, lockdown, the early beginnings of COVID. Maybe a little cliche, but I still like it, about like two people who are unexpectedly locked down together, that like really can't stand each other. So and kind of what blooms out of that. But my other one, I'm actually really excited about this one, and I may just write it just for poops and giggles, you know. But it is a enemies to lover, and it's gonna be based on my trip in Iceland. So I had this idea to write this sort of like almost like a rom-com, you know, that takes place during a road trip in Iceland. And I thought, I'm going to Iceland in September and I'm doing a road trip, so I could, and I already have the concept for it, so I could just like take notes and kind of use that trip to work out my ideas and really get all those like really specific elements in there. So I really like that idea. I'm at least going to take the notes for it and think about it while I'm on the trip. And I don't know, maybe I'll just write it for myself, just to write it for fun. But I love the idea. I think it sounds really fun. I love stories that take place in other countries. I live for that stuff because I love to travel. And I just think it'd be so cool to write one that takes place in Iceland. So yeah, but who knows when that's gonna get written. But I would, maybe sooner rather than later, you never know. So that is a full list of all of my writing projects. It's a lot, but I have an idea of like which ones I would work on, you know, moving forward. I think really the most likely that I would work on in the near future would be my YA cult book, my middle grade spooky, or my adult Iceland rom-com. So those are probably the next step, at least in this point in time, would go once I'm finished with Beware of Monsters, middle grade spooky, maybe adult rom-com since that trip is coming up, and then the YA cult. Those two maybe could be mixed. So when I watch this video next and update you on the progress, that might change. So that's kind of where I'm at. But I wanted you guys to know that I have other ideas, that your girl wants to work on other projects, and in the future, hopefully you will see me working on some of these projects. So what about you guys? Do you guys have a whole backlog of ideas that you'd love to work on? What do you think of some of these? Any that you think, oh girl, you should work on that one sooner? Comment down below, let me know. Or am I the only one who just has a bagillion ideas but is still stuck on one that they just can't get past? I'd love to hear about it down in the comments. So if you enjoyed hearing about all of my projects and seeing this face again on Authortube, please be sure to hit the like button. And if you're not already subscribed and you want to make sure that you continue watching my journey so you can see me eventually work on those future projects, make sure you hit the subscribe button. And thank you guys as always for watching, and I hope you enjoyed this video. I'll see you in the next one. Bye!